What is it on?
Parehinga. I move, seconded by Councillor Akuhata Brown. Declarations, interest, leave, blah, blah, blah. No minutes. We'll get straight into the table item, and Bill is going to say our prayer. Thank you. Right, okay.
Lord, as we deliberate today, give us wise counsel that we make a decision in the best interests of the Gisborne City people.
You forgot about the coast.
Well, I said Gisborne City.
But everybody has to travel from this side of the river to the other side of the river.
It's another picture.
Okay, we'll have an introduction of the topic from Nadine through Dave.
Yep, so through your worship, what the team has done is gone away and worked since Tuesday's decision on getting some more information for you, and have come up with a number of options. And I think what you will see is that nothing, well, anything can be achieved. It just depends on how much money you're prepared to put towards it. So what you have in front of you are three options. The first one is basically status quo, so carry on with the project as planned. The second option is actually looking at installation, changing the plan to accommodate the request to have to be able to see the river, but that is only on the downward side of the Turanganuiakewa River. It doesn't deal with the upward side, and that is taking into potential changes to scope a possible increased cost of $200,000, which would fall to the council. This is also subject to that there are a number of risks involved in this in terms of the consenting process, but there is also an opt-out that the staff have listed in here around October the 12th, where we would need to have a clear decision, otherwise the costs will escalate dramatically. And the third option in there is one that was talked about in terms of finish the project and go back and do it afterwards, which has a potential cost of around $670,000.
Yeah, I just want to thank the team for putting that concept there. There is only one plan, and that's it. Just trying to get to raise it with Heritage New Zealand, who weren't, while they may not have supported it, they said that certainly if the council gave a strong desire from this table, they wouldn't object to the resource consent. I was tempted to put a Bunnings fence in there. I think that was one of the comments from there, but we just got time to put it wasting time. So unfortunately, this is the only plan we could come up with that short time, which fits the heritage, still keeps the heritage values, it tries to achieve the objectives of the council, which I think the team have done a very good job in such a short time.
Yes, and well done to the team.
I'll mention it to them. Yeah,
excellent. Very comprehensive. Any other comments? I don't support putting the concrete ones up. That's my personal opinion. I think. What was that? I don't support putting the concrete sides up. Probably the debate is whether one side or two sides, isn't it? And
It's not necessarily that.
So you're moving option B?
Well, we're just talking about it at the moment. Yeah, don't want to rush into these things. Want to get it right. Have a look. Have a look at the picture. It resembles the old profile of the concrete palings sides.
Well, it's a lot of money to get from somewhere. Something needs to budge. It's a lot of money we need to take from another budget, so we need to be cognizant of the fact that if you take a look at our paper, we will be removing some funding from school improvement or minor safety improvements. So I'm not against it, but we need to make this decision with our eyes open, that if the community then come back in a while saying, we need this done around the school, or we need this tar sealed, that we can then say, well, we can't accommodate you because we use the money to future-proof this bridge. So we just need to take that into account as well. It's not just a clear decision. There's definitely something that have to fall off the plan.
Look, you can take away the 600,000 that you had allocated for the pedestrian crossings.
We had nothing. We had nothing allocated for your pedestrian crossings. No money.
Councillor Dowson.
I did make the comment to Councillor Thompson earlier this morning that we did decide to not progress with the Peel Street toilets, and that was 400k. There is that money is staying in budget for Peel Street, but there will be 100k spent of that on the 24-hour facility that will sit in its place. So there should be 300k sitting unspent budget this year anyway, but it's not necessarily the right thing to spend it on.
And I'd like that run in front of community development. Yeah, we've been discussing that for years.
Well, what's another year or 5, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's still a functional toilet. It's just not a flash toilet. That's all. People can still sit on the stainless steel bowl with no plastic thing on them. You call it the bridge. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I'm not phased either way. I think that as a bridge goes, as a design, I actually think that the heritage design has some merit. Like, it does have a heritage merit with regard to the buildings around the place. So I don't particularly. And you hear people say, "Oh, it's ugly." Well, you could have said that about the police station, but under the heritage values of our district set by the council, we require them to spend a small fortune and save that facade and build a building around it. And we do have rules around heritage, and I know that some of our other developers have been. And if they come and ask for some changes around heritage, we say, "I'm sorry, this is our heritage plan, our council plan," and we make them pay extra money with their development to keep that heritage value. So I think that with regard to the heritage value, we can't just walk all over it. We've got to go with our eyes open here. And I know that it was when it went to a consent, resource consent, NZTA had agreed to do a lookalike to keep that value, and so it was a limited consultation because of that. They were basically NZTA or the heritage people came back and said, yes, we're happy with that. So as a result, it was a limited consultation. And I think that if we're going to start just walking all over our heritage plan, we actually need to go and talk wider, because I've had people actually talk to me and say they'd rather see the heritage value kept. And there's two schools of thought here.
Marvellous.
Was that you laughing?
Marvellous. I'm just commending you.
And
I've never heard you speak like this.
As I said, I personally, not phased either way, but I just see that if we're going to start interfering with our own plans, we need to do the consultation process properly. Now, under the other question I would ask is today is timeframes. If we're going to change this, are we going to end up with the bridge running through until? Is it going to be? Are we going to manage the timeframes? Okay.
Yeah, the contractor said it, worst case will be an additional 2 months. So they're saying it could be even March or April. And the only reason for that is they haven't actually priced the construction of the steel railings, but they just said they haven't talked to their suppliers just when they can physically deliver them. So they've just asked for an extra 8 weeks.
And thirdly, my thoughts are around money. We've got to be responsible about money. And Councillor Stoltz has just said it. We've just gone through a whole process of the long-term plan. We've pushed as far as we can go. We've got reasonably high rate increases over the next 10 years. And we sat here and said, is this the worst it's going to get? And everybody said, oh yeah, this is the worst it's going to get. And a couple of months in, we've got the, and Councillor Wilson's always said this, that it never ever gets better, it always gets worse. And this is one where we're going to put up our hand and say, well, we either take it out of existing budget somewhere, and I would be very, very against it coming out of a roaming budget. I think if this is about the heritage, if this is about the navigations project, about the rocks and the tourism, then it has to come from somewhere out of there if you're going to do it.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, my immediate thought around this was no, I wouldn't agree to it. But unlike Councillor Thompson, talking about the heritage value, I can understand the heritage effect of all the buildings within our district, that it is of a certain type and it's very ornate and all the rest. But I struggle to find that this Gladstone Road Bridge has heritage value. It looks like fortress concrete to me. It isn't ornate. It is very basic structure. And if that's what the world is coming to, where heritage value now looks like that, well, I think if we preserve all those structures, it has an effect on our environment, which I don't think is good. And looking at this alternative here, I think it is so much better. I mean, part of the reason to build a walkway, cycleway, is actually for the aesthetic value that it brings to those that are enjoying that activity. That actually makes the area look much more attractive, and half the reason that people like going on bridges is actually of the view that you get on either way as you go across the bridge. Having been over many bridges throughout the world, they value their bridges highly and make them look as attractive as they can. And I see this as an opportunity to take advantage of that. And yes, we will have to find the money from somewhere else. It might compromise something else, but I believe that we will find something that where this stacks up as more an opportunity that presents itself right now, whereas where we take the money from is actually not really totally necessary right now, but could be rolled out a bit later. So I believe it is worthwhile looking at doing this alternative. And if it takes just doing it on that side of the bridge, yep, that's entirely okay with me, because that's where all the people are going to get the actual value of actually this view along the river. So I'm for looking at some way of doing the structure on that one side of the bridge.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards one side. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty obvious where I stand on this. I've been a strong advocate right from the start. And so, the aesthetic view that you're going to gain from this is amazing. And I'm really impressed with the picture that I've got here. My question would be that there's 2 concrete walls that have been made already. Is this image here, is that part of those concrete walls are being used, one at the front and one at the other end, to retain a little bit of, yeah. So, I actually was going to mention what Councillor Dowsing just did before. We've just had 300,000 from Peel Street put in, so there's a bit of flexibility there. And at the end of the day, we have been given a lot of money from government, and I really do question why we're having to prioritise a certain budget when we were talking $500,000 if we're going to do both sides, or around 400, and 200 for doing one side. So you've got an opportunity now, and we've got to sit back and prioritise what's best for the aesthetics of our region, the tourism potential, the whole thing. This whole bridge, it's the entranceway to the State Highway 35. It's an entranceway to our CBD. It is a strategic bridge, and as Councillor Wilson said, bridges are really, really popular internationally as not only an access way, but for recreation as well. Possibly bridge jumping might not be so popular on this if the rails are a bit narrower, but so there's so many benefits to this, and it would be really disappointing, I feel, if we're having to really struggle on $200,000 when the benefits of this are far more beneficial in the long run over forever and a day. If we go back to what we were going to do of putting those brick walls up, there's no way in the world that the concrete walls coming up, there's no way in the world that they'll come down again, and there will be an opportunity totally lost, and we would be slammed, I believe, for the opportunity that we've missed.
Councillor Dowsing.
Thank you. It's not going to sound like it, but I am actually for changing changing the sides of this bridge. It's just this process which I'm uncomfortable with, and it is about losing the opportunity. And I think it's about losing the opportunity to do more in-depth design work and make it something special. And at the moment, we've got a design that is okay, but it's not necessarily the best opportunity or the best treatment we could give this bridge. I see the facts that the money in the report doesn't really stack up to me. The figures there, it's suggesting that if we do the downstream side at the moment, it's 200,000 and the upstream side is 320,000. And yet if we do both at a later stage, it's suggesting that the downstream side then becomes 350,000. So it costs more to do the downstream side than the upstream side. It makes very little sense. Especially seeing that would be newly established, it's a replica, it should be easier to cut and remove, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but so it's so I think that the budget later is working on worst case scenario, and the budget for now is working on best case scenario. So if you meet somewhere in the middle, which is likely the case, I believe that the costs are going to be somewhere between 520 to do it all now and 600 to do it all later, something like that. And so it's going to be very little difference in terms of taking our time and doing the process properly. So I would personally like to see us slow the project down. Obviously, complete what's there because we can't risk paying the contractors' fees on delaying. $16,000 a week, I think it was in here, which will add up pretty quickly if we run over time and can't get these manufactured quickly enough. So to remove the risk of the contractors going over time and it costing us a fortune, it's likely to add maybe $80,000 to the bill later down the track. It's not going to be a big issue. Unlike you, Councillor Foster, I think that this looks like a ladder with big jumping blocks to me. So I think people will probably use this to jump off the side of the bridge quite readily. So I don't think it addresses any health and safety aspect we have of bridge jumping. And yeah, I just think that if we allow the project to complete, but we put this on the roadmap, then we can also start looking at what funds we can apply to. We may not have to fit the entire bill for this ourselves. That 80K could easily be found from a funding partner or from an agency. It's not a project that's unattractive for funding. It's something that fits squarely in line with our navigations project, squarely in line with the inner harbour redevelopment. So all I'm saying is that if we slow this down, allow it to complete, and put the project into the timeline, we'll probably end up spending less money and get a better result. And that's how I see this. I think we're rushing it.
Councillor McLean. No, Councillor Stoltz, sorry.
I would love Dave to just respond to what Councillor Dowsing said there, because I think we're moving on dangerous ground when we start doing our own numbers and questioning staff numbers. I know one of the risks is number 22, quality of information due to time constraints. So I would love for you just to comment on the made there. And then also my feeling that I'm getting around this table is that we are looking at one side. No one at this stage is leaning towards both sides. Are you leaning towards both sides, Bill? Oh, well, I will shut up then until people can have their opinions, but please just respond to...
Yeah, I mean, the estimates are what they are, and you've got the right. It's just, I suppose we took the worst case scenarios. How long would say the project was finished, how long would the expectation to go back to the site? If we were going to do a full consultation process, I mean, we assumed it could have been up to a year and a half before we actually could put something out. And the only reason we were looking at was we started looking at fuel prices and start having an impact on some of the contracts that are coming through now. So it was a worst case scenario, but it was something we were trying to be, and I suppose we're trying. Sometimes there's pressure to get a project across the line that you lower the costs to try and get it across the line, and it's trying to say, well, what's a fair and balance, within 72 hours or 96 hours, trying to bring some costs up. Because I know councils like absolute costs, but at the stage we just can't provide it to you at the moment. All we can do is give a range.
Thank you. Councillor Akuhata Brown.
Thank you, Worship. For me, the initial speaks to this is, how did we get here? The process itself, in respect to, you spoke in your report of discussing with the then CEO, Lindsay McKenzie, and, I've had a lot of people, say to me, we had a plan that was presented to a couple of committees, and our transport, our T-Roads people have gone about that contract and have been doing their job, and here we are today saying, whoa. So I guess in this last year, we've done a lot of learning around process contracts and decisions, and the challenge for us as leaders in this region to get to a good decision for the whole benefit. But it's, I've found this to be quite a little bit disappointing, I suppose, in the space of our leadership, because here we are saying it was originally a wooden toll bridge with see-through sides, it was heritage, and then it became this concrete space that became heritage, and now we're going to change the heritage. So the process, I believe, we need to obviously get better at opportunities that exist in the interim of the beginning space at the start, because now, as some of us have noted, here we are today discussing changes to a contract that are going to have some implications and costs. We already get hammered in the press around spending money and making changes and consents, etc. So I'm in a little bit of a, I guess, in the space of absolutely endorsing the notion of the opportunity that exists, but reinforcing the notion that the river doesn't always look pristine. And also the view of the logs isn't something that I see as stunning, frankly. But again, it is a view shaft that this beautiful awa, when it's in full bloom and looks the part, anyone would want to look and take some time to gaze upon it. So I would see the priority to ensure that the whole project, again, manufactures in the space of making sure our awa is presented beautifully, more so than not. Again, at the risk of not meeting the community's conversations to us, because again, we have the community asking us to show leadership, and you've already said it, rock and hard place. But I think more people in this region would see the benefit of a view shaft, both sides, than one. I'm leaning towards Councillor Dowsing's considerations for, let's make this work and make it an amazing navigations presentation. Admittedly, when the thought of the concrete going back, I thought we could paint the mural and have some of the kaitiaki of Ngāti Whanoni that is spoken of in the narratives painted alongside it. But if we are going to go to an open view shaft, is there a design that highlights again and recognises the navigations, the port, all those factors? But that takes time, and then here we are with, time delays hold up other projects, as you've said, Dave, many times. So where am I at with this? I think that it is important that we get process right at the outset. We are here now today to make a decision. I'm obviously for a view shaft because it's a beautiful, beautiful part of our region, but I'm still concerned that costings and all the other factors that make this a decision that's going to be the best for the region when we still have a lot of other needs. So I'm not going to say I'm sitting on the bridge or fence, because I want to make a decision today, but I'm just mindful of a number of factors contributing into this, including Mr. Allen's email that we all received, and again, some considerable depth of discussion in this space, but we've got to make a decision. So I'm still unclear really as to how I fully feel about this, but I want to thank the staff for coming back to us with your, your plans and your discussions, because we needed it. But I'm still unclear really sitting here today as to what is the best decision in this space right now. So, kia ora.
Would we be keen to borrow the money?
You talking about increasing the debt cap?
It's not reached the debt cap yet. I'm just asking. We'll just wait for Councillor Foster. Anyway, I move number 3B, option B. Thank you. Right, Councillor Foster.
If we read a couple of notes, but the design on this picture that we've got here is obviously taken from the Peel Street Bridge. Is that right? So, I mean, the similar design to the Peel Street Bridge is on this. So we've got continuity between our bridges and the looks of what they are.
No,
this is a brand new design.
Yeah, this is a design the team showed Heritage New Zealand to see whether it still sat within their heritage, right? If they were comfortable. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a similar concept to what Peel Street Bridge is like, and the transformation of that in the 80s when it was a block wall to what it was now was widely accepted as being the ultimate decision. And the other question would be funding. There are grants available. Is it possible to apply for a certain tourism funding or something else that might come into the criteria for this project? I mean, if we start, obviously the time constraints are a problem for some, but for me, I understand what's happened. We've been actually misled by Heritage New Zealand right from the start because of the heritage order. But anyway, we need their support. So there's some reasons why the decision right from the start to go down this line was made, and one of them was because of the heritage status that was put on that bridge and the order that was put on there. And now there's been a backtrack, and some leeway. That's why we're actually now looking at this, and it's a possibility. But, you haven't heard anything back from Heritage New Zealand to the contrary? No, and I suppose I have to be careful. I can't speak on behalf of Heritage New Zealand. All we've had is just discussions and things like that. So once we actually get something, So here we are. We've got till the 12th of October. If we make this decision today, there's no extra costs with staff or anything like that, or contingency payments because of delays, is there? If we make a decision by today for the 12th of October, there's no extra costs. Just the costs of the reconstruction of doing the new plan, and if we do decide to do both sides, both plans. So, we've either got a $200,000 maximum bill to contend with for one side, or a $450,000 to do the two together. The other question would be, if we do the two together, you're saying it's going to be finished before Te Hau, how long would it take to do both together? Because obviously if you're doing one, you just switch over to the other side, so it would be more cost efficient to continue that process. Yeah, we haven't asked the project team for that yet. I suppose what we're trying to do is then let's sort this immediate issue out, and then that's the desire of council, and that's okay. The other issue is that if the contractors that are working on the bridge now, and if we decide, okay, we're going to do both sides, and they do the other side, is that a job they would commission to do another project that would put pressure on them to deliver? Yeah, I'm unsure of that, because we have been fortunate because they've been able to work on the Wainui Cycleway Stage 2, some downtime, so that's why they said yeah. Right. And that's why they've been able to extend it. But the issue becomes the panels themselves. Yeah. They're constructing those, and that's where once those panels are stopped, and then they start building them onto the site, and that's when they'll say, hey, what's happening? Just a final thing. If those concrete walls go back up, there's no way in the world they'll come back down again to maximise this opportunity. If those concrete walls go back up, they're not coming back down again.
Thank you very much. Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lots of words. Question, just taking into account Councillor Dowsing's comments about sort of creating something amazing in line with navigation rather than the design here. What I want to know is, we were talking about before putting up the concrete balustrades and then changing that to this type of design. If we built this, could we go back later and have a look at something amazing? Just get these done first and down the track apply for funding and do something amazing there. I'm concerned that, yes, this is not great, way better than the concrete balustrades. I am concerned that we're rushing it. I'm actually all for both sides. I'm for both sides and the view that both sides will give. I think we might leave it to Councillor Wilson to find the money. It's your job.
I'm really much in the back.
Councillor Burdett. Councillor Burdett.
Bridges are bridges are bridges, as far as I'm concerned. If we're going to do this, firstly, compliment to Dave and the staff for putting this is a pretty comprehensive report. They've done a good job. But look, if we're going to do this, we should do both sides and do the bridge once, should I say, and do both sides. The reason I'm saying this, we've now spent a fair bit of time discussing this. There are a variety of opinions around the table. The only plea I make, and I can back it up, is that it doesn't come out of the roading fund. I don't know how many of you are aware of late that the New Zealand Transport Board sat, and in terms of Highway 35, 5 applications put in by this council, both Dave's involved, got turned down because it didn't meet the criteria. And that puts even more pressure on our roading fund. So I'd actually like to see it come out of the navigations fund, because that's who will benefit most from this, the Te Hā and navigations.
Councillor Cranston has spoken.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going from something that's unplanned and unbudgeted and had no money attached to a significant spend. So we have to have some clarity around where this is going to come from. I'm sitting here concerned because the most likely place it's going to come from is the ComDev budget. If we can get it through navigations, that would be good. If it's going to come from the ComDev budget, I want to know now how it's going to be. I don't want to be sitting in ComDev meetings saying you've got to extract that from your budget for the bridge. With no sort of consultation or discussion of that. Those budgets have been set for ages. We're already starting to look at things like operational expenses, which keep going up to that budget. So it's difficult for the staff and for us all in that area. So to just sit here and say, well, latest thing we've discussed that had any money attached to it was the toilet, so that's the obvious one that will hit. That decision can't be made here. That's got to be made with the clarity on how we do that. I am in favour of both sides of the bridge getting done, because Te Wehi o Ngā Awa is the better view, you know, the other way, going to the convolution of that. So, and I really dispute having a bridge with two different sides as to what that will end up looking like. Yeah. I think it'll look quite, excuse me, I think it'll look quite silly, actually. So we do need to consider this. We need to consider the budget. We need to consider the end product. And at the moment, this rush process, I'm not in favour of. I don't know how we go about it, but those things we've got to consider are the budget and the end product. And the end product at the moment is going to be higgledy-piggledy. And yeah, so I think we've got to take the time out to sort of review this properly under a proper process.
You might have some answers for Councillor Cranston.
So through your worship, in terms of where the funding might come from, so as I understand, it's the minor improvements budget, of which we've got $101.425 million in it. 700 of that is earmarked for tied up navigations and inner harbour work. So we would probably not be able to take some money from that, given we've got kind of quite an intense program of capital works in that space. Bear in mind, however, we have a $45 million CapEx budget. And we also have, on top of that, the $108 million that came from the Provincial Growth Fund, along with the additional NRTP funding. So we have an ambitious program of capital works, of which finding $200,000 within budget is highly likely, probable to be found without impacting on some of the other areas of work. It's just a matter of letting us to go away and work through what we would reprioritise around that. The recommendation, however, is to actually defer the other side of the bridge, because that 200,000, in addition to what we don't know around another traffic management plan, the consents, and actually paying for that works, is a lot more than finding 200k. So we wanted some time, should you have chosen to proceed with option B, to actually work that through and look at alternative sources of funding.
Councillor Dunn hasn't spoken.
Yes, thank you to the staff firstly for getting a really good report to us in such a quick time frame. I found it really valuable with the information inside it. I think that the design you've put in front of us is a great combination of the two values that we want captured in the bridge, which is its heritage and also views. They're the two things that we're striving to achieve here. At this stage, in this time, I am happy to go with one side. Ideally, yes, we want both. But I think it's sensible to be phasing it, which is what option 2 is saying. And I'm guessing we can probably stick it into our annual plan or have some way to have both sides of the views of both sides of the river. I think at this time, we still are. We still have the heritage value on the other side of the river. So it's not like we're getting rid of the heritage value altogether. And I'd also like to thank Heritage New Zealand for continuing to have this conversation with us, because a key message I would like to put out there is that we do recognise the heritage value of this bridge, and we don't want to get rid of it altogether, and that we are trying to find a solution that includes both. And thank you for ensuring that they get that message. So I'm happy with option B at this stage.
Thompson Dowsam. Councillor Thompson. Microphone, please.
Can I just ask a question of Mr. Zeman, and that is with regard to the heritage issue, and we have it listed as a category 2 on our Brisbane District Council plan, and in getting a consent, NZTA came up with a proposal to satisfy that, and because of that, it was a limited consultation process. What sort of, are we likely to get issued? And in the same time, we all have our views on what heritage is. Some might think it's like a fortress, and some might think it's ugly, and some might think it's pretty, and some might. So that's an issue where that's a personal thing. But we do ask our developers in town to maintain the heritage value of buildings that are listed in heritage. And the fact that we are prepared to possibly walk all over our own asset and just change it with disregard, could that cause us some issues down the track with regard to developers wanting to do development work in town around heritage buildings and say, well, you did it?
Thank you, through your worship. A couple of questions in there. The first one is, yes, there was limited notification because it was in line with the heritage values in terms of the application. I think what we'd have to do, we don't know what the actual decision is by council and what their actual proposal is, so that will have to be assessed in terms of how different is the change to the heritage value, but that still goes through a consenting process. I can't really comment on how it will affect the opinion of what developers do. I would think that, yes, it would create some issues in terms of that, but it's still a process that we actually have to go through in terms of the consenting process, just like the developers have to go through a consenting process too, and it depends on their proposal.
Councillor Dowsing.
Yeah, just briefly, I was only going to clarify the figures that Councillor Foster stated, because he stated it would be 200,000 for the downstream, then 450 for the upstream, including the upstream, which is incorrect. The report says it would be 520, and the penalty charges can be applied if we only do the downstream. It's all relative as to if we can deliver the work on time. So those penalty charges are over our head, based on whether we can achieve compromise with Heritage New Zealand, get the manufacturing done in time, find the budget, get it built, get it done before the end of the project, and not cause them any delays.
Councillor Stoltz.
It's really quite easy what we do here today. There are two options. The one is we go with the information, rushed information, because we put this onto staff. We can be talking about we want amazing designs or we want accurate numbers. We can't expect that in 72 hours. So one avenue is to say, yes, we will go with what you told us. This is the way we will go. Or we pause and say, no, we are going to slow it down. We're going to follow a proper process. Unfortunately, we can't have both in this game. So we need to decide, are we going to take the information we received, make the decision, which I'm feeling most people around the table are leaning towards one side, and just go with it because that's what expected of us. This is not the ideal process, but this is what we have because we brought this to the table. So we now just need to make that decision. We are going to go with information we received, trust that it is well, trust that this is what the community want from us, or we need to say, no, we are not happy with information. We are not going to change process. We are not going to expect Heritage New Zealand to maybe bend rules for us if we don't expect that from our residents. So it is quite straightforward. We go with process number one, which is not perfect and not ideal, or we pause and go with process number two. So it's just up to us to make that decision. Easy call.
Councillor Akuhata-Brown.
Just in respect to Kōrero around heritage, I was just wanting to know whether iwi were involved in the space of this bridge and consultative space. I guess Ngāti Onioni have put a considerable amount of time into the navigations and Te Tarangi Maunga, and I just would be, I just was interested to know. Kia ora.
So through your worship, the resource consent assessment, despite it having statutory acknowledgement over the Turanganui-a-Kiwa River, so Rongo-Whakaata and Ngāti Wharae, it was determined by the assessor that the effects were less than minor and therefore no further consultation was required.
Councillor Finn.
Yeah, just quickly, actually after listening to Councillor Stoltz, I'm all for doing the one side now. But I just ask that the comms out to the community, because they're really interested in this, is that we will look at doing the other side in the future as well. Okay, and the reason why we're doing one side this time. Thank you.
Councillor McLean hasn't spoken.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm listening to the discussions also. I mean, a bridge is a bridge to me, but when you see something like this, and the view is fantastic. And I went down there the other day and had a look, and it made one thing stand out about how ugly a railway bridge is. So I wonder if that's the next step people want to look at and say, holy hell. It is a nice view, but there's this big facade sitting right across in front of you. Think, yeah. But I agree with Councillor Stoltz that I think now's the time. It was going to be 200 grand. We're going to get slammed by our community for spending another 200 grand. But I think in the long run, the positive outdoes the negative. And I would say we then go to the community and ask them if they want to spend more money on do the other side. But I'll go with Councillor Stoltz and recommend one side. Thank you.
All good? B. 3B. Nadine? 3B, A, B, C, D.
If it helps, sorry, through your worship, that you may recall when we did the LTP, we put in 64% of the FAR rate, and we since then we approved it to be at 68%. So we are carrying a surplus in that area, which the council at the time decided to put into a reserve to hold for other things that may come up within the roading activity. So that's an option.
And plus the far rate funds footpaths now. Before it was 100% funded by council. Yeah, there's lots of little nuances that could aid this project. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, it seems we're nearing the end of the side discussion, but there was the other concern that people had with the separation between the footpath and the road. I see here it's quite a low. Is there anything being done to get that separation, which was a lot of people were also concerned about?
Yes, there is. Yes, that's been reviewed. The walking and cycling team have come back and asked exactly the same question. But in terms of, we thought the presentation of Heritage New Zealand, you know, would give them that. But yes, that's been raised again.
Sure.
I just wanted to know, sorry, how many concrete balustrades have been made now, cast? Like
by Thursday, there'll be 8 of 32. So that'll be the two. Some of those will have to be lost because they were actually going to start from one end and move across. So.
What else could they be used for at this? Well, I just had a person say to me that can we protect the winery residents from the noise as such, using those? That was what was asked of me.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I just wanted to bring up the fact that we did have a consultation committee to do with the cycling, walking tracks, and councillors sitting around the table here were interacting with the NZTA with the Wainui Cycleway and argued very strongly to have it go over to Rutini Road, which eventually they agreed to, even though that wasn't their preferred thing in the first place. We argued very strongly, didn't we, Councillor Stotts? And it has disappointed me that they have chosen not to get that committee to sit with them. That hasn't happened for about a year and a half now. And I argue that possibly, not definitely, but maybe this problem with the bridge would have actually surfaced if we had been able to carry on those conversations. So I think the opportunity has been lost by NZTA to carry on that interaction with a working group of councillors, and I've got no understanding why they just dropped it. No mention to us why we weren't included anymore. In fact, they were doing things with the cycleway that the last time we spoke with them is not the same as what it was before. So I think there's been a lack of communication there, and I would have thought that maybe this could have not happened, this bit of a mess up with this bridge, if this consultation had carried on.
Okay, I don't have much more to add, but thank you for the debate. The important thing is that it has come to the recommendation is common sense, that it is one side, it is up to 200,000. It has been consulted intensively with Heritage New Zealand. This is not to say willy-nilly plan that actually has come up from some creative designer. I just want to acknowledge Dave and Nadine for your quickness and robustness in the report itself. And I would add that the vista of the river adds 1,000,000 times value. Then, regardless of the design of the balustrade or the metal things that they're going to put in, it's the river. It's the vista out into the bay and the bridge, the railway bridge, the beautiful railway bridge, the beautiful cruise ships that are coming in, and the yachts and the Taki Tumu and all that precinct there. It's just going to be beautiful. So, all in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. Now, I just want to let you know, when you see something, it's really different to when you see it on a piece of paper and you know, we can change our mind. The other project that's actually on there is actually the Sponge Bay to City cycleway that ended up at Kairi School. Now, I'm going to say that I didn't realise how magnificent that actually that wide pathway is. And I have every thought that it should actually just continue straight to town.
Your issue, you brought this up and I told you there's no room. You go have a look at the footpath as you place the town, it's not.
No, but I'm just saying.
Why are we having this discussion?
Yeah, because you might get the supplies papers. Anyway, I'm just saying, it's allowed to be narrow at times, isn't it? I'll tell you one thing, you know, if it wasn't for my observation that even from Sponge Bay leading up to Kaiti School, I even mentioned that there is actually quite a bit of room in that road reserve to actually build it there. It was actually just going to cross over from Heath Johnson Park and go around the other side to Rutini Road itself. Anyway, just observations, all right? Lunch is at 12, obviously, at your own cost. But thank you. Any other things, Nadine? Do you want to chat? No? Another time? Another time? Or do you want to chat to Nadine? No?
We'll talk to the design team to officially get this to Heritage